What if it's awkward? What if it doesn't go well? What if I spend all this time and money and it's just okay? Well, what if it goes better than you imagine? What if you finally went for it and it wasn't just okay? It was better than you ever could have imagined. On our first sailing trip out of Naples, we had all the usual fears. Will the group get along? Would it be worth it? Would it be stressful or crowded or too expensive? Instead, something really beautiful happened. And in this episode, we're sharing about what surprised us in friendship, in planning, and in discovering places that we didn't even know to look for.
Welcome to the What Could Go Right podcast. We are your hosts, Erik, Orton.
And I'm Emily Orton.
And here we talk about personal growth and sailing. In 2014, we moved aboard a fixer-upper sailboat and bootstrapped a year sailing with our 5 kids, and it changed our lives forever.
We tell the whole story in our memoir, our book, 7 at Sea. On this podcast, we want to help you go from fear to freedom, one adventure at a time.
So as Emily was saying, we recently got back from a trip to Italy, and we sailed in Italy before, but this was our first time doing a group trip to Naples. And Emily and I had been to Naples before. We actually lived on a boat with friends right there for maybe 6 weeks?
I don't know.
Maybe 2 months. Anyway, so we were very familiar with the area, but I had not done a lot of sailing there. So we sailed out of Naples and a little island called Procida. We sailed over to an island called Ischia, and then over to Capri, which is a little bit more known, and then down the Amalfi coast to the town of Amalfi, Positano, and then around to Sorrento, and then back to Procida and Naples. And so in some ways, we were revisiting known areas, but just made so many delightful discoveries and had a great group on board, and really fun to spend more time with them and get to know them and become friends and see them become friends with each other. And then really just, add a new place we love to our roster of destinations, and to add some new people to our list of friends that we care about and are grateful to have in our lives.
So sometimes people surprise you in the best ways. And on this trip, some of the guests knew each other. Most of the guests did not know each other. And so it can always be just a little bit, you feel a little bit anxious going into, hey, I'm going to spend a week in close quarters with some people that I've never really met, outside of a Zoom call, and I don't know very well. And I know we had one who was particularly anxious. It was actually her first time traveling overseas, and she was anxious about meeting friends, but she had something beautiful to say about it.
I had an amazing time on this trip. Sailing was amazing. Being around people I didn't know at first had me worried, but it was such an amazing experience. We talked, we played games, and I learned so much about and from all of them. There is such beauty that's out there, and we don't even realize it. Highly recommend this experience to everyone. 5 stars. Thank you, Marisol.
And I noticed that she talked a little bit about the sailing and a little bit about the location, but she was most excited about the people. The thing she had been the most anxious about turned out to be the thing that she loved best about the trip. And so I know sometimes we just brace for the worst, but what if it's better than you imagine, better than expected? And that's what happened on this trip. So I have a question for us. What happens when we give people the benefit of the doubt and trust that we might connect?
This question, first of all, I love this question, and it brings to mind a book that you and I both read when we lived on Fezziwig, our boat, and I think it was called Playing the Enemy. That was the name of the book. It was about Nelson Mandela, and the title was later changed to Invictus, which was turned into a movie with Morgan Freeman and Matt Damon. Morgan Freeman playing Nelson Mandela and Matt Damon playing one of the South African rugby players. And one of the things that we read in this book was how Nelson Mandela, despite being a political prisoner for so many, many years, came out of prison, and his attitude when he was meeting with the Afrikaners and other people in his political duties was he assumed that he would like them and that they would like him. This was despite all evidence to the contrary in many, many situations. But he went into situations assuming that he would like the people and assuming that they would like him. And obviously, Nelson Mandela is a legend and just an example in so many ways for all of us. And I remember when we read that, we just thought that is a great way to go through life, to just assume that the people that I'm going to come into contact with, that I'm going to like them and that they're going to like me. And surprisingly, I think that when we go into that, when I go into that anytime I go into a situation where I assume that, when I assume that I'm going to like them, the odds of them responding positively to me go way up. It just seems like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, does that answer?
Yeah,
Am I
I
answering your
think that's
question?
great. Another question is about how we can show up to new groups or experiences with just more openness and less expectation. And I read this book, I think it's by Ralph Potts, called Vagabonding. Great book if you want to kind of expand your view of how you might move through the world. But one of the things that he talked about is um, coming with a discovery mindset, with curiosity, and saying, like, let me learn about these people who are in front of me or around me. And I have found that when I come even just to my own dinner table that way, with people who I think I know and who I think I already have, their narrative pretty well sketched out in my mind, to come with an adventurer's mindset or a discovering mindset and be ready to learn as if you were traveling in a new country or a different culture. And that works at home at the dinner table, and it works, it's obviously easier to imagine yourself doing that in other places, but it just opens things up to say, like, my way isn't the only way and my way isn't the best way. And I'm going to learn about other people and how they think and how they do things. And I'm not going to be threatened by that. I'm just going to be saying, wow, there are other ways. And whenever you're coming into a group, that's a great way to, I think, to add on what you were saying, like, just assume you're going to like each other, but also assume you're going to learn a lot from each other. And that's what happened on the trip from Naples.
Yeah, and actually, that brings to mind some of conversations, the kind of conversations I like to have at the beginning of the trip. And I don't want to derail this. Is that
Yeah,
something that
yeah,
would be
go
good to
ahead.
share now or later?
Sure, go ahead.
So, oftentimes our trips will begin with just having dinner at a restaurant with the whole group. Partly that's because the first day everyone's been traveling and we get there, and because we all take turns cooking for each other, I don't want to cook the first night. I don't want to ask anybody else to cook the first night, and we sleep on the boat at the dock. And so it's easy to get to a restaurant, and so we'll usually have dinner at a restaurant. And earlier this year, I was taking a group sailing in the British Virgin Islands, the BVI, and we went to this restaurant I hadn't been to before, and there was a pretty good group of us. There was 12, 13 including me, which is a full boat, and the biggest boat we take. And we kind of had to bring all the tables around the restaurant together so we could all sit together. And this was a trip where nobody knew anybody. Actually, I take that back. Two of the couples knew each other, um, but everybody else was a stranger. And I like to kind of break the ice with conversation games. Sometimes I'll just bring a really, hopefully not too invasive, but thought provoking question where people can, you know, share something of themselves, and it's a chance. And we just go around the table and everybody has a chance to chime in. And so we hear from everybody and everybody gets to meet everybody, and it's good. And the question was something about kind of the future, like, something aspirational about the future. I don't remember what it was, but one of the ladies on the trip, she said, "I'm here on a spiritual journey," and sort of talked about where her and her husband were at and what that involved for them, and he shared something similar, and it seemed like a brave move to me in a group where you don't really know anybody that well, to just say, "Hey, we're on a voyage of discovery. We're on a spiritual journey." I think spirituality is one of those topics that can feel very close to the heart. And anyway, the thing that I noticed was that when they opened up that way, everybody kind of softened and opened up to them, and it created a tone where everybody was just a little bit more open with each other. And I remember that trip being really um, just a good group in the sense that there was a strong connection. And with that, realizing that we can influence how the tone of things, how they unfold, by how open or vulnerable or soft we're willing to be, and how that affects others. And so you were asking about how can we come into a situation where we're with new people. I think one, assuming that we're going to like them, and two, being willing to trust them with something that might feel a little bit vulnerable. I don't think we need to go in and overshare and just drop all of our baggage on a group of strangers. But I think, especially when it's something that is aspirational, I think it lets people cheer for us in a way. If they know what we're trying to do or trying to become, they get to join our team, and we all want to cheer other people on. I think it makes us feel good and it helps them feel good. So that was just an example of, I think, seeing that in practice with somebody else on one of our trips.
Yeah. So the takeaways: assume they're going to like you and you're going to like them. Come in curious and open to different ways of thinking about things or doing things, and um, be willing to share a little bit of yourself in an unguarded way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really does build a group quickly. It's also pretty fantastic if you spend that many hours together. It changes. It's very different if you spend 1 hour a day with somebody for 12 days consecutively versus 12 hours in a row. So that's one of the real gifts that is unique to these sailing trips. But all of the other tips can apply in any setting. Okay, another thing that we recognized on this trip to Naples, and I just want to say, like, I did not go on this trip, but
She was supposed to go, and then
yeah,
she very graciously stayed back and helped my parents who are going through some health challenges. So it was a bittersweet thing. But anyway,
yeah. So we keep saying we. I felt very involved. I was, key in planning this trip, and I was following closely, but I wasn't actually present. And I don't want you to think that I'm saying I was when I wasn't. But one of the things that we learned as we talked about it is that asking for help can change everything. Um, and so I'd love for you to tell about how when you arrived at the base, and it was a company we've worked with before, but a base that we'd never worked with before. So all new people. And like you said, a new area as far as sailing goes. And there was kind of a contrast in help that you were given. And anyway, everything just turned out better because you asked for help. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
yeah. So, Emily and I have places that we've gone to before and we like to go back to again. And as I mentioned, we've been to this area but had not sailed here. And we were working with a partner company of somebody that we work with regularly on these trips. And so there were a lot of things that were new about the arrival. And anytime, as the trip organizers and planners, sometimes we have little jitters as well. When I'm going to a new base, I'm curious about, is the provisioning going to be delivered on time? Is everything that we ordered going to be delivered, or am I going to have to scramble and go find replacements? And are they the kind? Do they keep the boats to the quality that we've been accustomed to and that we want? And and also I rely a lot on local knowledge for planning the trip. And as much as people are curious about where we're going to go in each adventure, oftentimes it doesn't get decided until we arrive. I usually have some ideas, but there's so much that depends on local conditions of that week, whether it might be weather or things that are going on in the area that we need to factor in. And also, I like to get personal recommendations from people right there who have sailed there a lot. And so there's two parts to when I get on a boat. I get a chart briefing where they kind of go over the sailing area with me as the skipper and make sure that I know the do's and don'ts, where I can be, where I can't be. They give recommendations, things like that. So that's the chart briefing. And then I also have a technical briefing where they walk me through the boat itself, because each boat is slightly different. The buttons and knobs and switches are in different places, very much like getting a rental car, and you might have to look for how you open the gas to put in gas, or how do the windshield wipers work. It's the same thing for a boat. It's the same elements, but things are tucked away and hidden, and it's not always obvious. And boats are a lot bigger than rental cars, and so you sometimes have to walk around to find the things you need.
Yeah, more knobs and switches.
Yeah, so I went to the chart briefing, and the way that they did it at this base was, because every boat goes out at the same time, the same day, they do a group chart briefing. And so there's maybe 10, 12 of us skippers in a room, and they have a guy there, and he connects his iPad to a screen, and he's walking us through the area. Normally I'm sitting down and I have a paper chart in front of me, and I'm able to take notes. I'm able to put Post-it notes on the paper charts of things that I'm interested in or want to avoid, or places I definitely want to go. And I didn't have that. And this guy was zooming in and out of his screen. He was doing the presentation in English, which was a benefit for me, but Italian was his first language. And so with the accent and vocabulary, there were some things that were hard to follow. And if I was going to ask a question, I had to ask it in front of a group rather than specific for my friends that I was sailing with. The other thing is, he said, hey, there's basically two ways you can sail out of this base. You can go northwest, kind of remote islands with bigger jumps sailing wise, or you can go southeast to Capri and Amalfi and sort of the more populated areas and, more towns. And that's where we were going to go. He spent most of his time exploring the other areas, and then said, okay, for everybody that's not going there, if everybody that's going there, you can now leave. That's all we're going to say about that. And so most of the room cleared out, and it was me and 3 other skippers that were going to be going the other direction. And he's like, well, basically just, call ahead to the marinas, make sure you book a place to stay. Some marinas are really expensive. If you want to go to Capri, we had a mid-sized boat go there the other day, and it cost them $2,000 to spend the night at the marina. So just know that. And I was like, what size boat? And it was the same size as ours. And I was like, what I'm not going to do is spend $2,000 to tie up at a marina for a night. So I knew but we all wanted to go to Capri. So I had to figure that out. And anyway, and there were areas where you weren't allowed to sail because of fishing restrictions, and like you could here, but only at certain times of day. And anyway, I was just very confused, and I was excited for the trip, but I felt sort of deflated after this chart briefing. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, I had my information. We were going to be fine. I got on the boat, and then it was late in the day. We all went to dinner, like I mentioned. And while I was at dinner, I got a call from the base saying, hey, we have somebody that wants to do the technical briefing with you. And I was like, it's like 7:30 at night, and anyway, I was like, can we do it tomorrow? Because I'm out to dinner. So they said, sure, first thing in the morning.
So what's the technical briefing?
The technical briefing, like I said earlier, is where they walk me through the boat and show me where all the knobs and switches are.
Yeah, that's the name of that tour. Technical briefing.
Fun times. So anyway, this guy shows up, just wonderful. His name's Eleno, like Elaine, but with an O. I guess that makes it Italian. Eleno. And he does a lot of these, and so he's patient, but he says, I'm going to talk to you like you've never sailed a boat before. And I said, Eleno, I appreciate that. Just so you know, I have sailed this model of boat often, so I'm happy to go as quickly as you want. I think I can keep up, but I do have some chart questions for you. He's like, perfecto. And we dive in, and we're cruising through. We get all of my questions answered, and what maybe takes him an hour and a half, we're able to knock out in 25, 30 minutes, because the boat is very familiar to me. And I say, great, now I have some questions for you. And we opened up the charts, and I started to say, they were telling me yesterday that we can't sail in these areas, and we have to go here. And he was kind of asking my route, and I said, we're going to go here, and we're going to go to this marina. And he says, wait, why? Why you want to go to this marina? And I said, well, because there's nowhere else to anchor on Ischia, which is the island we were going to the next day. And he's like, oh, you can anchor anywhere. And he started to explain that when they do flotillas, which is a group of boats that go out and travel together. He's the skipper for the head boat. He's out there all the time in these areas, taking people to these spots. And so he just kind of lit up and was able to start in on all of his favorite places. And he said, oh, this is a good spot for lunch. You can come here, during the day. He's basically like, don't sail here ever. Don't sail here ever. Everywhere else you can sail. You can anchor. These are great places. And we pulled up Ischia, which is where we were going the next day. And I asked him for some recommendations. And after we went through a couple, he got to the northwest corner of Ischia and he says, this place here, Nugumbo, it's paradise. It's so incredible. And I was like, well, what makes it so incredible? And he said, well, there's this, I'm going to stop with the Italian accent. Anyway,
Either way,
he was just saying like, there's this park there. He said Nugumbo. And I was like, what is that? Is that like a hill? Is it the bay? Because it wasn't on the chart anywhere. He's like, it's a place, like it's called Nugumbo. And turns out that it's this park that's thermal baths, like mineral hot water or hot baths, natural hot springs, and they've made it into a park. So imagine kind of like a botanical garden and a hot mineral spring having a baby. And that's what it is. And there's a beachfront and there's some restaurants and they have a spa and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, we went there. Incredible sail getting there. We drop anchor. It's a little bit crowded during the days, maybe, 30 boats, 35 boats or so. And we go to shore and we discover this place. It's beautiful. It's peaceful. It's lovely. Everyone buys a ticket and we just decide to spend the whole day there. And by the end of the day, we all head back to the boat and it's cleared out. Everyone that's there day tripping has gone home for the day. And there's 3 boats in the anchorage overnight. And we just have this beautiful, peaceful night watching the moon rise up over the highest points of Ischia. And I never would have gone here. I would have taken us to a marina on the other side that would have just been like, probably taxis along the waterfront and a lot of people coming and going and shops and restaurants. And that can be fun sometimes. And we do that. But this place was just beautiful and peaceful. And so that's one example. And then we just kind of went down the line and I said, Capri, I don't want to pay $2,000 a night. How can we anchor there? And he's like, oh, I'll show you. You can anchor here. And if you get there early and they don't have the lines up yet for the season, you can anchor right here, go in nice and close. And he gives us all these recommendations. And everybody wanted to go see a thing called the Blue Grotto. Do you want to take a second and sort of tell our history with the Blue Grotto?
I'll say the Blue Grotto was the thing that I was most excited about on this trip as far as sights to see. And when I was homeschooling our 5 kids, we read this book called Red Sails to Capri that was a fictional kind of history of this island of Capri where it was before like there was the Louis Vuitton or Coach store. It was just like the villagers and it tells the story of these travelers from England who come and the story around this grotto is that there's some kind of curse and but this little boy in town is kind of like their guide and he helps them get things in and out of their boats and things like that. And he goes with them and they go over to this cursed grotto and they learn that it's actually this really beautiful natural treasure where you do have to get pretty low to get inside. But once you're inside, the way that the light from outside the cave hits the water just lights up the whole thing to look like you're inside a blue gem or something. And it's just an incredible interplay of light and nature. And I don't know that is actually the story of the Blue Grotto at all, or it's just this book that we read, but it brought it to our attention and it romanticized it so much. They were like, oh my gosh, it would be so cool to go there in person. So then you can say what it was really like.
So I'm talking to Eleno and I say, we want to go to Capri. He says, why? Why you want to go to Capri? It's tourist trap. And I was like, well, maybe, but we still want to go. And he was like, okay, I tell you. And he explained where we could anchor. And then I said, and we want to see the Blue Grotto. And he said, okay, I give you a name. And he gives me the name of this guy. And I'd have to look it up, but I have it. Anyway, he's like, call him, tell him,
Eleno,
the
Sent you.
Yeah, he's like the flotilla boy. He's like the flotilla boy. Anyway, he's like, he told me about what it would cost and just was so helpful and so specific. So when we sailed over to Capri, Capri, as the Italians say it, but I'll just say Capri because that's like Capri
We'll go
Sun.
back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, we're multilingual. So we call the guy, arrange for a pickup. He comes and gets us and takes us all the way over there. And we're getting there just as I guess at a certain time the tide is too high and it's too late in the day and they don't let anybody else in. And we're right on the line and he has to do some fast talking and a lot of gesticulating to get us in the door, so to speak. But we all get to go into the grotto where it requires getting into this boat that's basically kind of the size of a canoe, but it has rowing oars on each side, and you have a person on the boat with you, and you have to lay down flat because the entrance is so close to the water, it's so shallow, and you slide in, and it's just like Emily was saying, the light hits the water outside the cave, and it reflects up underneath inside, and being inside a gem is probably a good way to describe it. So well done, Emily, even though you weren't there. Anyway, we come out and our we had to. It was far enough that we had to go over there by motorboat. It was on the other side of the island from where we anchored. It was over on the cliffy side where you cannot anchor. And the guy then, for a couple more euros, he takes us on a tour all the way around the rest of the island, and is just kind of talking us through it. And anyway, so it's beautiful, 360 all the way around. And then one couple in our group had been there before and recommended something. We're like, let's go try that. So it was basically there's this chairlift that takes you to the very top of the island. So Capri has a lower village that's called Capri, and then there's an upper village called Anacapri, and the whole island is very cliffy. It just kind of comes straight up out of the water, and so there's only a few places where you can get ashore. So the next morning, we moved the boat around to the other side, close to the marina that we decided to not pay thousands of dollars to park in, and we anchor there. Good place to anchor during the day. And we go into town, and it's a fun little adventure. Turns out that to even get to the main part of town, there's like the waterfront part, but the main part is still up on the hill a little bit, and you have to take a funicular, which is
Just a fun word to
a
say.
fun word to say for actually like a cable car. It's
Yeah.
like a trolley and a cable car, a trolley that is a cable car that takes you up the side of the hill. So we get up there, and it's this quaint little town with, like Emily said, some high end shops, but also excellent gelato and just cool history. And then we all kind of gradually take between buses and cabs, get ourselves up to the town of Anacapri. You have to go through this little road that kind of is cut into the rock of a cliffside. Just really, really, extraordinary views. And then we get to the top, and that's where you get into this cable car, not a cable car, chairlift, which is basically like a ski lift, but each chair holds exactly one person. And you buy a little ticket and you get in, and it scoops up from behind you and takes you up the hillside, and you just get this lovely, peaceful, quiet ride where you can look all around the island. You're just by yourself, so there's not really anyone to talk to, and you can just be with your thoughts. And we got to the top, and there's these beautiful panoramic views of the Bay of Naples and all the other islands around us. And there's a restaurant on top, and we were able to have lunch up there and just enjoy the breeze, and then come back down and get in back to our boat. And lots of steps involved there, but anyway, these are just examples of what you were saying, Emily, which is what can happen if you ask for help. Because we asked for help and people were generous with us, we got to go to this beautiful thermal park. We got to find a way to go to Capri without breaking the bank. We got to do beautiful, fun things. We had a person come and pick us up right off our boat and take us to where we wanted to go. And there are just more and more stories of that from throughout the week. But that was just those were just a couple of examples of things going way better than I possibly could have imagined.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing all of those. So if you're hesitating to try something new, I get it. It's scary. You don't know what's going to happen. It could go badly. It could be just okay. You could feel like it's not worth it. It could be awkward. It could be uncomfortable. Or maybe it could turn out way better than you ever imagined because you assumed you would like it. You assumed people would like you. You went curious. You were open. You kept yourself a little bit unguarded. You asked for help. And when you got help that felt discouraging or deflating, you just kept asking until you talked to someone who was like, oh no, this will be amazing. This is wonderful. This is going to be something great. And
can I reference one of our other episodes? It's something you're saying made me think of it, which is try hanging around people that make things feel possible. I can't remember which episode it is, but just this idea that if people that you're around make you feel like it's hard or you can't do it, or it's just the odds are so low that you probably shouldn't try, maybe consider not hanging out with them as much or at all. But people that just say, oh yeah, you could totally do this. It's not rocket science. You can figure it out. And even though the odds might be long, if anyone can make it happen, you can. Those are the kind of people that you want to spend time with. At least that's my feeling. And I forget the episode, but if you scroll back, there's one about that.
well, you just got the gist of it here. So
Yeah, now you don't need to listen to it.
No homework required.
Save yourself 30 minutes.
But people can surprise you in good ways. You don't have to figure everything out alone. And some of the best moments are ones that you maybe didn't even plan for. So what's a small step that you could take this week? Maybe try something with an open mind. Say yes to an invitation, or ask a question that you don't know the answer to, or take a detour. Just trust that not knowing everything doesn't mean it won't be worth it, or maybe even better than you could imagine. So until next time, what could go right?
Hey guys, it's Erik. Before we wrap up today, I want to go over the sailing update. For those of you that are interested in sailing with us, I want you to know what is available. So we do have a few spots left for 2025, and then we've also got a bunch of trips to announce for 2026. So buckle up. There's a few to run through here. Our Greece trip, which is happening in later July, is sold out. So that one is now no longer available. And our Croatia trip, I think, is also sold out. People have said they're going to send me deposits today as of this recording. So I think that one is sold out. If you're interested, check in with me. Just hit me a DM, send me a DM, or email me at eric@theawesomefactory.nyc, and we can let you know what's available there. However, we do have some cabins available for our October trip, Mexico, La Paz. Beautiful, one of my favorite places to go. You should listen to our podcast episode a couple back where we talk about why it's the most underrated, but one of the most beautiful trips we do. So October 20th through the 25th, we'll be in La Paz, Mexico. Then in November, we've got one spot in our BVI trip for a female spot, November 10th through the 15th. Again, I think that one's going to fill up. There's lots of people looking at that. And December 8th through the 13th, we're in the Bahamas. 1.5 cabins, one full cabin plus a female spot. Again, we've got a few folks interested in that, but at the moment, as of this recording, those are available. So if you want to go sailing with us in 2025, those are your options. And now for 2026, if you need to look further out, here you go. British Virgin Islands, January 5th through the 10th. You'll fly in and out of St. Thomas. We're going to be back again a few weeks later, January 26th through the 31st. So 2 chances to sail in the BVI in January. Hopping over February to March, we're going to go to French Polynesia. It's an amazing place. I haven't been there since 2017, so a number of years. It's a fantastic trip. Not going to lie, it's by far the most expensive trip. It's going to be a one-way from an island called Raiatea out to Bora Bora. So you fly to Tahiti, get a hopper over to Raiatea. We're going to sail over to Bora Bora, and then we fly back from there home. So we're not going to be doing this one again for quite a while. So if you're interested in that, March 8th through the 14th, French Polynesia. We are back in the Bahamas, April 13th through the 18th. This time we're going to go to the Abacos, which is different than where we normally go. So it's going to be a pretty special trip, and I'm excited about that. That wraps up our spring. In the summer, we jump back over to the Med. In June, we're going to be back in Italy, Naples, repeating the trip that we did this year. So fun, so beautiful. June 6th through the 13th. Then in July 11th through the 18th, we will be in Greece. We'll sail in and out of Athens. And then in August 1st through the 8th, we're going to go to Croatia again. So And then, sorry, not spoiler alert, but special bonus feature in September, September 26th, 2026, we're going to go to Italy for a second time, September 12th through the 19th. It's the shoulder season. All the kids are back in school. Most of the tourists have taken off, but the weather is still gorgeous. So there's two chances to go to Italy. BVI in January, French Polynesia in March, Bahamas in April, Italy in June, Greece in July, Croatia in August, and then Italy again in September. So if any of those are of interest to you, email us. I'll give the correct email. hello@theawesomefactory.nyc. Theawesomefactory.nyc. And that way, me and the folks that help me out will see that. And we'll get you information, or if you want to ping me on social media, you can DM us and we'll get you details. But if any of those are interest, would love to see if having you aboard is a good fit. So that is the sailing update. Thanks. If you were talking to somebody that was thinking about coming out on one of these trips, what's something you might say to them?
Do it. Take a chance and do it. You won't regret it. I absolutely do not.